Hi, my name is Bert. This is a video on using ChatGPT for investing. In this video, we're going to be talking about using ChatGPT for making buy-sell decisions in stocks. We have a whole series of videos coming on, which will be using artificial intelligence in things like risk control, portfolio construction, algorithmic trading, and a few others. But this one is simply about making buy-sell decisions on a fundamental basis. We're not talking about technical analysis in this. Okay. Before we get into an actual example of how ChatGPT can be used, let's just talk a little bit generally for a second or two. What can these large language models do? Well, I like to think of them as a search engine on steroids. Regular search engine like Google has you type in a keyword, and then Google does its magic, and you get a list of websites. Then you can read those websites and get information and decide what to do. Large language models go a lot further. They actually look at the content in the websites, and then they write an essay summarizing them. Generally speaking, the essay is quite well written, pretty impressive. And that's why a lot of people think that it's going to take a lot of jobs away from journalists and writers and people like that. I don't know about that, but it does write very well, no question about it. The essay has a particular template. We'll get to that in a second. Now, it's important to know that these large language models can't do certain things. They were trained on data, or ChatGPT was trained on data up to SEP 2021. So anything recent won't be in it. Now, there is some talk that OpenAI is going to start training it on news as news comes in. And once that happens, its usefulness will increase a lot. But right now, it's only on old data. The algorithm cannot make forecasts. It only repeats the forecasts that other people have done. There are artificial intelligence algorithms that do actually make forecasts, but we're not going to be dealing with them here. You're only going to get the forecasts that other people have. In general, ChatGPT, these large language models, don't handle quantitative data real well. They don't handle tables and graphs real well. You can get a table if you ask for it, if there's one on the web it's exactly like the one you've asked for. But if you just say, give me a table with these columns and these rows, it's not going to give you very good results. Okay, supposing somebody tells you about a stock that he likes and recommends you invest in it. How do you make a decision? Well, you have to research it. And when you start out researching, you don't know very much. So you have to get the basic narrative of the stock. And large language models are a very good way of doing that. This is a good first step in investment decisions. It's only a first step, but it's a good one. It also tells you what the overall market is thinking, because these large language models are trained on the internet. They give you basically the average of the internet. And that's important because you can find out what is in the market, or at least what was in the market as of 2021. The example I have here is rare earths. You may have heard of these. These are a group of metals. They've been in the news because they're used in military application and China controls them. So that's a problem. I also happen to know that there's been a bear market in rare earths for about a year. And from the standpoint of a fundamental investor, that means that there might actually be some value here. You want to buy low, no question about it. So let's go through this. Now, before I get into it, I have to make it clear, this is not investment advice. I'm not saying invest in rare earths or don't invest in rare earths or anything like that. This is just an example for educational purposes. Okay, you've probably heard about prompt engineering, and that is the art of coming up with prompts for a large language model that gives you the exact results you want. And that's pretty important if you're doing something very specific, like creating an email to a client. You need a prompt that creates an essay that is exactly what you want. However, that's not what we're doing here. We're just trying to investigate the general narratives in this case, the rare earth market. So the prompts can be pretty general. And here's the prompt. The first prompt is just describe the rare earth market. About as simple as you can ask for. And what does ChatGPT come back with? It's in italics. The rare earth market refers to the global trade in rare earth elements, which are a group of 17 metallic elements. They're used in a wide range of products and applications, including high-tech electronics, renewable energy, and military hardware. Well, that's pretty good. Those are high-growth areas. The rare earth market is characterized by a high degree of concentration, with the vast majority of production and supply coming from China. Well, I've heard that too, and that's another reason to maybe want to invest in it. The market is also subject to significant price fluctuations as demand for rare earths can be volatile. And then they give you a list of reasons why the price can fluctuate. That's a pretty general thing. You'll see that in many prompts. Overall, the rare earth market is a complex and dynamic industry that plays a critical role, etc. This is all pretty general stuff, but it's a good start. And notice that the style here is very much like a high school essay. There's a beginning paragraph, then there's a few paragraphs that elaborate on it, and finally you have a summing up of it. So I can understand why this is being used for cheating in high school. It's exactly what high school teachers want. Okay, the next prompt. What are the major uses of rare earths? Rare earths have a wide range of applications in modern technology. Some of the uses are, and they go through them here, high-tech electronics, renewable energy, including wind turbines, electric vehicle motors, solar panels. Well, that's all good. Those are high growth areas. Military hardware, medical applications, catalysts, and glass polishing. Well, I don't know about catalysts and glass polishing. Those are old industries, but all the others seem to be high-tech, high-growth industries. That's pretty good. A lot of these have to do with magnets, MRI machines, electric car motors, wind turbine motors. Those all seem to do with magnets. So let's go into that a little bit more. So why are rare earths used in magnets? Rare earths are used in magnets because they have unique magnetic properties that make them highly effective in creating strong and efficient magnetic fields. Then they go into the actual physics of why that is. And they say that these magnetic properties make rare earths ideal for use in permanent magnets, which are used in a variety of applications, and they list them. The most commonly used rare earths in magnets are neodymium and praseodymium, which are referred to as NdFeB magnets. These magnets are some of the strongest permanent magnets available and are highly valued for their performance and versatility. Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. it does seem that there are some alternatives to rare earths, but they're probably not as good. We'll get to that in a second. Prompt: what is the demand for forecast for rare earths? And this is the kind of question that a large language model really isn't very good at. It's just going to give you general background without coming up with the kind of hard numbers that you might really be interested in. Demand for rare earths is expected to continue to grow in the following areas: electric vehicles, renewable energy, defense, consumer electronics. Then at the bottom, they do have a little bit of actual quantitative forecasting. Overall, the demand for rare earths is expected to increase steadily in the coming years, with some forecasts predicting the demand could double or even triple by 2030. Personally, I'm always skeptical when I hear double or triple, especially in only a few years. In the mining industry, you just can't open all those mines in a few years. That's not the way it works. Nonetheless, even if you don't believe that forecast, it does reinforce the basic narrative that this is a high growth industry. Okay, so we know that rare earths are used in magnets. The magnets are used in motors. The motors are used in electric cars, which are going to be a very high growth industry, already are. Maybe there's some alternatives to it. So are there alternatives to rare earths in electric vehicles? While rare earths are commonly used in electric vehicle motors, there are some alternatives, and they list a few. Permanent magnet alternatives, and there is one called iron nitride magnets, which are apparently in the laboratory only, but they've shown some promising tests. That's good. Induction motors don't require magnets. They use permanent magnets. They use electromagnets, and they use cheaper materials. Switched reluctance motors, they're another type of motor that don't require permanent magnets. However, they have lower efficiency. Overall, while there are some alternatives being developed to reduce reliance on rare earths in electric vehicles, permanent magnet motors containing rare earths remain the most common type due to their high efficiency and performance. So there are some substitutes, but they have an efficiency penalty. And along these lines, I read in the news that Tesla is not going to be using rare earths in its new car. Tesla's coming out with a much lower cost car that should be out in a year or so, and that will be using probably an induction motor. That is a trade-off. It's cheaper, but it doesn't have it won't have the range that a rare earth magnet might have. So it basically means that rare earths have value as the most efficient way of propelling a motor. Okay, are there any, this all looks pretty good, and I'd love to invest in this, let's say, and let's see how we can do it. If you think a metal is going to be in high demand and the price is going to go up, the easiest way to invest in it is via a futures market. So the prompt is, are there any futures markets for rare earths? Yes, there are futures markets for rare earths, which allow investors to trade contracts on rare earths for a future date. The most prominent one is the Shanghai Futures Exchange, which offers futures contracts for several rare earths. Trading in Shanghai's rare earths futures began in 2014, has grown steadily since then, reflecting the growing importance of rare earths. In addition to the Shanghai Exchange, there are also futures markets for rare earths in other regions, including Tokyo and London, However, these markets have lower volumes and liquidity. Now, when trading futures, liquidity is very important. The last thing you want is to buy a rare earth futures contract, and then you can't sell it. What do? You have to pay for it, and you get a warehouse ticket someplace in Shanghai. You don't want that. So obviously, if you're going to invest in the futures market, Shanghai is the way to go. Let's see how we can actually trade it. The prompt is, which US brokers trade on the Shanghai Futures Exchange? And the first paragraph is kind of a downer. It is important to note that US investors are generally not able to trade on the Shanghai Futures Exchange. The exchange is restricted to domestic investors and a limited number of overseas investors who meet specific requirements. And I will say for a fact, that doesn't include virtually anybody who is seeing this video. Doesn't include me. So the truth is, you can't invest in rare earths futures. However, what the ChatGPT does is give you some alternatives. Now let's go through these alternatives to see if ChatGPT knows what it's talking about. Invesco offers the China Technology ETF, which invests in China technology companies and may provide exposure to rare earths. Well, that fund, I happen to know, is a very general China technology fund. Rare earths are only a very small part of it, so I would say that's definitely a mistake. Global X offers the China's Materials ETF, which invests in Chinese companies in the material sector, including rare earths. And that's true, but it also invests in steel and copper and forest products, chemicals, and markets which are a lot higher than rare earths, a lot bigger than rare earths. So I think that's a no-go too. ProShares offers the ultra-short China 50 ETF, which provides inverse exposure to the China 50 index. Well, that's just a mistake. We're not looking to go short China. We're looking to go long rare earths. So really, that has nothing to do with anything. That's, what do they call that? Hallucination, I think. It's just wrong. Okay, let's see what else we can do. The prompt is, what's a list of companies that derive more than half their revenue from rare earths? There's several companies that derive more than half their revenue from rare earths. And here are a few examples. Lynas Rare Earths Limited, which is an Australian company, has 96% of its revenue from rare earths. China Northern Rare Earth, that's a state-owned Chinese company that is involved in the mining of rare earths. It reported that 67% of its revenue came from rare earths. By the way, just because a Chinese company is state-owned doesn't mean you can't invest in it. The state-owned companies in China have a hybrid structure whereby they have both public and private ownership. Now, when push comes to shove, of course, they are controlled by the government. But if you're Chinese, you can invest in it. Unfortunately, I doubt that an American would have an easy time of investing in this. There are some brokers that will allow you to do it, but the ones that most people use, the big online brokers, probably won't. MP Materials is a US-based rare earth company that operates a mine in California. 100% of its revenue comes from rare earths. And Arafura Resources, which is an Australian company that is developing a project in Australia. Well, Arafura is a development company. In the mining industry, development companies are called juniors. And I never invest in juniors. They're very high risk, potentially high return, but almost always losers. I and a lot of other traders that I know have had terrible times with that, with juniors, and I would just stay away from it. So China Northern, if you can invest in it, if you have a broker who will do it for you, is one. MP Materials and Linus Rare Earths are two that look very good. What is market percentage of the rare earth business by company? Let's see how big these are. And again, this is a cutoff in September 2021. And then it goes through some companies that you actually can't even invest in and weren't on the previous chart. I guess the data for this company, for these companies, is just available on the internet, and that's why ChatGPT lists them. The only one here that we saw in the previous slide was China Northern Rare Earths, and all it says is that it's one of the largest rare earth companies. It doesn't really give you any numbers here. Kind of a disappointing slide. It doesn't give you much quantitative information. And a lot of the other companies on this list are actually conglomerates which produce all sorts of things, rare earths being a very small part of it. Well, let's try to whittle things down a little bit more. China Northern looks like a fairly decent bet if you have a broker who will let you trade it. How much neodymium does China Northern produce? And you can see from this that it really doesn't know. In fact, in the bottom paragraph, it says, to obtain the most accurate and up-to-date information or any other company, I recommend referring to the latest company reports, industry publication, or official sources. Well, that's good advice. At least it's being honest. There's it simply doesn't know this sort of these sort of numbers. Okay, well, let's try to go a little deeper. I think we have a basic narrative here. Let's see if we can do any more with ChatGPT. What are the price earnings multiples for MP Materials, Linus, and China Northern, the three companies that we're really interested in? As an AI language model, I don't have access to real-time financial data. Again, they're being honest. And then it just gives you general information about what price earnings multiples are and recommends you go to websites like Bloomberg, Yahoo, or some of the others. So again, it's being honest here. It just doesn't know and doesn't want to give you bad information. So it just says nothing. I actually went to those sources and looked at them. And here's a little table I came up with. I had to build this table by hand, though. ChatGPT was no help here. And what I have is the three companies we've been talking about and some pretty typical valuation measures on them: price earnings ratio, overall market cap, price to book ratio, and EV to EBITDA ratio. You can see, according to these measures, that Linus seems to be the cheapest. Its price earnings is only 11 versus 16 for MP and China Northern. Its enterprise value to EBITDA is only 5.6, which is about half of the others. Okay, I think we've reached a point here where we have to start using other sources. ChatGPT just can't do any more for us. However, it's done a lot. It's gotten us up to speed on the basic narrative, and now we can go further, and we can do our own investigation. And in future videos, I will do those investigations, and we'll be using different AI techniques. So thanks a lot. I'm Bert, and see you in the next one.